Title: Unit circle in trigonometry. Unit circle meant radius equals 1. First of all, I'm going to label my axis. That'll be x minus x, y minus y. And I'm going to divide the whole circle into 4 parts, which is the four quadrants. So I'm drawing this line to see what I'm doing here. That'll be my first quadrant. So I'm going to call that first quadrant. And this is my second quadrant. Yeah, that'll be my second quadrant. The third and the fourth quadrant here. So that will be the third quadrant and the fourth quadrant. And I'm going to, since I'm dividing the circle into 4 parts, I'm starting from 0 degrees all the way, or 0 radians, all the way to pi over 2 radians, which is 90 degrees. And then go all the way to pi radians, which is equal to 180 degrees. And then go all the way to 3 pi over 2, which is 270 degrees. And then back at 2 pi, which equals 360 degrees. Now I've done my division. The next thing is to show pi over 6 angles. Now pi over 6 angle. Just remember pi equals 180 degrees, which is approximately 3.142 radians. Pi over 6 is equal to 30 degrees. So that's the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, the pi over 6 angle is basically, because we're not up to 1 pi yet, we need to take away 1/6 from 1. So 1 minus 1 over 6 is 1 over 1 minus 1 over 6, which equals 6 over 6 minus 1 over 6, keeping the denominator the same. And that will be 5 over 6. So in the second quadrant, the 5 over 6, there will be 5 pi over 6 angles. In the third quadrant, the pi over 6 angle in the third quadrant, because we've gone past 1 pi, we need to add 1 to 1 over 6. So we go 1 plus 1 over 6 would be 1 over 1 plus 1 over 6 equals 6 over 6 plus 1 over 6. That would be 7 over 6. So that would be 7 pi over 6. In the fourth quadrant, we're approaching 2, but we're not at 2 yet. So we're approaching 2 pi, but we're not there yet. So that would be 2 minus 1 over 6. That would be 2 over 1 minus 1 over 6, which equals 12 over 6 minus 1 over 6. Keeping the denominator the same, that would be equals 11 over 6. So that would be 11 pi over 6. Now, 5 pi over 6 is basically 5. What you need to do is do 5 times 180 divided by 6, and that will give you 150. So that's 150 degrees. 7 pi over 6, what you need to do is just do 7 times 180 divided by 6, and that will be 210 degrees. 11 pi over 6, basically you just need to do 11 times 180, then divided by 6. That would be 330 degrees. And that's how you find your pi over 6 angle in one complete cycle. Now we need to find pi over 4. Pi over 4 angles, in the first quadrant is 45 degrees. In the second quadrant, because it hasn't reached pi yet, 1 pi, so you take away a quarter from 1. So that would be 1 minus a quarter, which is basically 1 over 1 minus a quarter. Keeping the denominator the same, you're going to get 4 over 4 minus a quarter, which equals 3 over 4. So in the second quadrant for pi over 4 will be 3 pi over 4. And 3 pi over 4, what you need to do is just do 3 times pi, which is 180, divided by 4. and that will give you, hold on, sorry, just do that on a calculator just in case you don't make mistake. With 3 times 180 divided by 4, and that will give you 135 degrees. Right, in this third quadrant, because you've gone past 1 pi, you need to add a quarter to 1. So that will be 1 plus a quarter will be equal to 1 over 1 plus a quarter equals 4 over 4 plus a quarter, which is 5 over 4. So that will be 5 pi over 4. So what is 5 pi over 4? Again, in your calculator, you do 5 times 180, because pi is 180, and then you divide by 4, and that should give you 225 degrees. So that's how you do that one. In the fourth quadrant of pi over 4 angles, you're approaching 2 pi, but you're not there yet. And so therefore, you basically 2 minus a quarter, that would be 2 over 1 minus a quarter, which is keeping the denominator the same. So you're going to have 8 over 4 minus a quarter, and that'll give you 7 over 4. So that will be 7 pi over 4. And what is 7 pi over 4? Again, in your calculator, you do 7 times 180 divided by 4. That will be 315 degrees. And that's how you do that. And that completes the quarter pi angles. Now we're going to do pi over 3 angles. Pi over 3 equals 60 degrees in the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, because we haven't got to pi yet, 1 pi, so we have to do 1 minus a third. 1 minus a third will be equal to 1 over 1 minus a third, which is equal to, keeping the denominator the same, 3 over 3 minus 1/3, which is 2/3. So that would be 2 pi over 3. And 2 pi over 3 is simply just get your calculator and type in 2 times 180, which is equal to 360 divided by 3. That should give you 120. So you can work that out off your head. That's 120 degrees. The next pi over 3 is in the third quadrant. Again, because you're adding 1 now to 1/3, because you're going past 1 pi. So you do 1 plus 1/3, that will be equal to 1 over 1 plus 1 over 3 equals to 3 over 3 plus 1 over 3, and that gives you 4 over 3. So that's how you get that one, 4 pi over 3. And what is 4 pi over 3? So that would be 4 times 180, that would be equals to 720 divided by 3. That's 240. So that equals 240 degrees. Now, the next pi over 3 is in the fourth quadrant. This time you're approaching 2 pi, but you're not there yet. So you have to do 2 minus 1/3. That will be equals to 2 over 1 minus 1/3. That will be equal to, so multiply both top and bottom by 3 to get 6 over 3 minus 1/3, keeping the denominator the same, and that becomes 5 over 3. So that will be 5 pi over 3. So what is 5 pi over 3? Again, you do 5 times 180 divided by 3. That's 300. So that's 300 degrees. And that's how you find the pi over 3 angles. We could have found the angles using n pi plus or minus theta. So, but yes, we found it other ways as well. Now let's find the coordinate for each angles. For 0 degrees, x value is 1, 0 and y is 0. Because the y value doesn't have a height. For 30 degrees, there's a height for the y value. And the value actually is, for x value of 30 degrees is root 3 over 2, comma a half. For 45 degrees, it's root 2 over 2, comma root 2 over 2. And for 60 degrees, it's root 1 over 2, comma root 3 over 2. Notice that root 1 equals 1, and therefore the root will disappear for that one. And for 90 degrees, it will be x is 0, y is 1. And that's for 90 degrees. Now let's find the values for each of these multiples of these angles. Let's start with pi over 6 angles first. You can see pi over 6 angle is root 3 over 2, comma a half. So if we look at all the other pi over 6 angles, it will have the same magnitude but different directions. That means it depends on the quadrant where they are, the signs will change. So because it's in the next one is in the second quadrant where x is negative, the x value will be negative. It should be exactly the same, but the sign will change. So for pi over 6, which is 30 degrees, for 150 degrees, it will be minus root 3 over 2, comma a half. The y value stays the same, but the x value becomes negative. So for 210 degrees, it will be, it's in the third quadrant, all is negative. So it's going to be minus root 3 over 2, comma minus a half. So for 330 degrees, y is negative, x is positive. So it's going to be root 3 over 2, comma minus a half. So now let's try pi over 4 angles, which is 45 degrees. They are root 2 over 2, root 2 over 2. For the second quadrant, 135 degrees, that's negative for x, so it's going to be minus root 2 over 2, comma root 2 over 2. So for the 225 degrees, that's in a third quadrant, so all negative. So that'll be minus root 2 over 2, comma root 2 over 2 minus. For the 315 degrees, y is negative, x is positive. So you're going to have root 2 over 2, comma minus root 2 over 2. So now the last one is for the pi over 3, which is a half root 3 over 2. Because it's in the second quadrant, x is negative, so you're going to get minus a half root 3 over 2. In the third quadrant, all negative, so you're going to get minus a half minus root 3 over 2. And the 5 pi over 3 is y negative, x positive, so a half minus root 3 over 2. Now we need to do the pi, which is 180 degrees, so that will be minus 1, 0. Let me just write that properly. So that's minus 1, 0. So minus 1, 0. Okay, now for 270, it's going to be 0 minus 1. And that's how you write the coordinate for the angles. You only need to know the coordinate in the first quadrant, and you can fill the rest in depending in the position they occupy in this first, second, and third. Now the x and y coordinates corresponding to the sine and cosine angles. So the x and y coordinate now equivalent to the cos angle and the sine angle. So what that meant is for the coordinates of 30 degrees, root 3, 2 correspond and a half, both correspond to the cos 30 degrees. So let's just fill that properly, and sine 30 degrees. So what I meant is cos 30 degrees equals root 3 over 2, and sine 30 degrees equals a half. So you could put those values in, and you can see that they correspond to the sine and cosines of the angles. So the x coordinate is a cos and the y coordinate is a sine. To find the tan theta is sine of theta over cos of theta. So tan of 30 degrees will be sine of 30 degrees, which is a half, divided by cos of 30 degrees, which is root 3 over 2. And that will be equal to a half times 2 over root 3, which equals 1 over root 3. In maths, we cannot have 1 over root 3 because root 3 in the denominator has to be rationalized. So we have to multiply both top and numerator by root 3. So that will be equal to root 3 over root 3 times 1 over root 3, which is root 3 over 3. So therefore, tan of 30 degrees is root 3 over 3. Thank you.